Abbi J, your life coach here, and today we're talking all about confirmation bias. What it is, why it's dangerous, and how I see it in the teens that I coach all the time. Specifically, I'm going to share with you the steps of how to avoid confirmation bias when it comes to your relationships with your friends and your significant others. So, let's learn together about why confirmation bias can be so dangerous as a teenager. So, confirmation bias, what is it and why is it so dangerous for teenagers? Well, maybe you're a lot smarter than me and you've actually heard this word before. I learned this word not that long ago. And when I watched some classes on it and was learning about what confirmation bias was, oh my gosh, the light bulbs in my head kept going off. And I was like, that totally happened to me in all these relationships. That's why I didn't break up with this guy. It was putting these pieces together. So let's talk about what it is. So confirmation bias, I've got my laptop here for the actual definition. So it's looking for, seeking, and basing your beliefs on what you already want to believe. So that is when you already want to believe that something is bad or something is good, and then you only find information that supports your claim. So I find myself doing this and I always laugh. Have you ever Googled a question and then you realize as you're typing the question that it's biased? So an example of this might be, why is eating lettuce bad for you, right? If you type that into Google, you already put the bias that I only want to find articles that say eating lettuce is bad for you. And I just totally made that up, right? But do you see how my bias was built in? And so now all of a sudden, I'm going to only find information that has that really negative spin on it. Whereas if I typed in Google, why all the benefits of eating lettuce, right? I would get all these other articles telling me all the benefits of eating lettuce. And so that's why confirmation bias can be so scary and so dangerous, is because we only look for information that already that supports the belief that we already hold, whether that belief is true or not, right? And that is how, as teenagers and as adults, we can cling on to beliefs that are outlandish, beliefs that are absolutely insane. And yet we believe it with all of our heart because our brain only has found information that supports those crazy beliefs. So I want to share with you examples of how this shows up in your relationships with your friends and your significant others, because I did this, and it's actually a super common thing that we as women do because we're so good at making things work. We're so good at crafting our own reality. And as human beings, the reason that we rely on confirmation bias is it actually is a shortcut for our brain, right? Instead of, think about it. If you were ever on a debate team and your teacher gave you a controversial topic, most teachers would have you research all the pros, why people like this, and then you'd have to do all the cons, right? And then you would have to make the decision and think about all the pros and all the cons and what you're gonna say and all this. That is so much work, right? And while it's the right way to do things, a lot of us say, I think this, and so I'm only gonna find information that supports it because then I don't have to think about it again. Then I get to believe what I believe. Then I also don't have to do the work and research and argue it and fight it and think about it. Oh yeah, I just found this article that tells me 100 ways why lettuce is awful for you. Okay, I'm gonna believe that and never eat lettuce again, right? And these are all just my made up examples. But you will see this in the world all around you. So I'm gonna teach you how to step back from confirmation bias and how it affects you in your daily life. So as I walk you through the steps of how to overcome confirmation bias, I'm going to do it from the perspective that I experienced as a teenager, which was really throwing confirmation bias over my relationships. So if you've watched my relationship videos, if you've taken my dating course, Dating Queen Academy on abbiwinslow.com, it's amazing. You'll know that I had like some crazy dating experiences, and I put up with the crappiest behaviors from the guys I dated. And some of that had to do with confirmation bias, because I was looking for all the ways that they were a good boyfriend, or to prove that they did love me, because that's the decision I made in my head. I had actually done something that, like, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so terrifying. I can't believe I did that. But as you can imagine, I've always been into personal development my whole life, right? And so I always say affirmations to myself. I believe in like really pumping yourself up. And I listened to one, and it said you should say to yourself, this person loves me, because they assumed in this tape that you're married, right? And I think there is so much value in saying to yourself every single morning, my husband's name is Josh, like, Josh loves me and I love Josh, right? I think that is so incredibly helpful as soon as you are committed, legally, lawfully, like, wedded. Because I decided, I was like, oh my gosh, such a great idea. I'm gonna say that about my boyfriends. So I would say, this person loves me and I love them, right? Because I was telling myself that, I was overlooking like the 10 bad, awful things that they would do, of like ghosting me, not talking to me, flirting with other girls, breaking my heart, saying they just wanted to be friends, only wanting to make out, like blah, 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 all those things, right? And then I'd be like, oh my gosh, he sent me the cutest text. I totally know he loves me. Oh my gosh, the last time we hung out, he couldn't keep his eyes off of me and he held my hand. Oh, I totally know he loves me, right? Because that's what I was telling my brain to look for. And so how can you combat this? Especially like girls do this all the time with boyfriends that are awful, but they're like, he loves me and I just know he does. And it's because they're clinging on to like the one thing that they did to reel you back in. The flowers they sent you, the nice text, the fact that after treating you like crap for 2 weeks, they then treat you like a princess. It's an abuse cycle, honey, and it happens. But we do this with bad friends too, right? They get us in trouble. They do things that we don't support. They undermine our values. They make us feel less than. They tease us. They don't save us a seat at lunch. And then we're like, oh my gosh, but we had so much fun on Friday night. Right? And our brain just says, yes, Friday night. Oh my gosh, that's what our friendship is based on. That's all I'm going to think about. I'm not going to think about these other things, right? So, how to combat this? First and foremost, we've got to take a step back. I am a firm believer that our spirit is what I call it. You can call it your soul, your intuition, your tie to the universe, is so sensitive and so smart that if we're cued in at all, we get little red flags. We get the thought of, oh, you know what? I don't think that was okay behavior. I don't know, like deep down inside, I really don't know if he's a good boyfriend, right? And that, I feel like, is our spirit trying to wake us up to this reality. And so if you are getting those little bit of red flags, that gut feeling, I want you to take a step back from the situation. Honestly, if you're watching this video, there's probably somewhere in your life where you're like, you know what? I think I want to take a step back and reevaluate my beliefs about this. So whether that's your beliefs about your friends, about your boyfriend, about controversial things going on in the world, I just want to invite you to take a step back. Then once we've taken a step back, this one's hard, we're going to try to emotionally distance ourselves. So this one is incredibly hard, and truthfully, as a teenager, I could not do this. And so if you can't do this, that's okay. We're going to try, right? We're going to try so that we can develop this skill, but I've got some other tips that will help you when you can't emotionally distance yourself. And I'm here to tell you that if you are invested in a, I want to say like sexual relationship, but I don't mean that as in like just purely physical, but like a romantic, that's probably a better word, a romantic relationship with this person, or there's feelings, or you've held their hand, or you've kissed them, and you're just like, I don't know what's going on, or he's my boyfriend, or anything like that, especially if it is a sexual relationship for you. you've got to emotionally distance yourself to correctly evaluate your confirmation bias. And if you cannot do that, don't worry, my next tip will help you. But it is so important to leave the emotions on the table. Like, I just want you to mentally picture like saying, oh man, I feel so strongly about this, or I get so mad when people say this, or I get so upset when my mom is like, oh my gosh, your boyfriend, like, that's not okay. Try to take that, like literally picture my big red ball of anger and putting it on the table. And my big yellow heart-shaped, I just love him so much and he's so freaking cute emotions, and putting it on the table. And just saying, I'm gonna try to look at this as logically, as like Mr. Spock like as possible, because that's so important. Confirmation bias is based mostly off of our emotions. So let's try to emotionally distance ourselves. Okay, this tip might be the most important one. If you get any tip from this video, do this one. I want you to ask a trusted source. Because like I said, in my example of like, I put up with these bad boyfriends, and if I would have been one willing to listen, because people were trying to tell me, but I wasn't willing to listen. But if I had taken a step back, if I tried to like just be like, I'm going to try as best I can to put my heart on the table and to step away from it, you've got to ask a trusted source. And so as a teenager, if you've got a good relationship with your parents, I'd go talk to your mom and dad and just say, hey, listen, mom and dad, what do you think about my current relationship? Do you see any red flags? Do you think I'm handling it in the best way? What are your beliefs about this subject or topic, right? And so we ask a trusted source, and the important keyword in there is trusted. Sometimes that trusted source is our best friend, and sometimes it's not, okay? And especially if you're a girl in high school, I want you to know that going to your group of friends and asking their opinions isn't the same as asking a trusted source. You need somebody who is not emotionally attached to the situation like you are. So if I went and was like, hey, my 3 girlfriends, what do you think about this relationship? They, as much as they would like to, probably can't give you a truthful answer, because guess what's going on in their head and their heart? They're going, oh, I don't want to hurt Abbi's feelings, so I think this guy is a total jerk and the loser of the year. So I'm going to just like say that really, really lightly and be like, oh, I think he's okay. You guys seem to fight a lot, but I think you're really cute together, right? Because all your brain is going to hear is, oh, we're really cute together. Oh, he's an okay guy. No, we want to take a step back from somebody who has our absolute best interests in mind. And I know our friends do, but sometimes if they're too close to the situation, if they're friends with this person, it's not a good fit. Also, I would encourage you that if this is something that is like a belief, a personal belief that you have, that doesn't necessarily involve like a person, that you ask an expert. And what makes somebody an expert? One, that they've dedicated like years of their life to research and study, and that they are on the cutting edge of what is currently known about this subject. So when it comes to my child's health, I can Google all day, every day, and read every single mommy blog out there about how breastfeeding is the only way to, feed your child. And if you give them formula, you're basically giving them poison, right? I can read that on a million mommy blogs. I can also read on a million mommy blogs how formula is so amazing and so wonderful, and it's this miracle of life, and just forget about breastfeeding, right? Because that's another controversial issue, right, out there in the world that you can be on totally different sides of. Guess what? Even though those mommy bloggers, they mean the best. They've had experience with their children, and they've had real life experience and stories that have happened to them, but they're not an expert, right? The person that I go to for expert advice on how to take care of my child is my pediatrician. He has the degree. He has like over 20 years of experience taking care of kids. And so when I have a question, I have to stop myself and say, Abbi, are you Googling this just because you want to hear what you want to hear? Or should you call your doctor and ask about this, or get advice from a trusted expert? So I want to encourage you that we check our sources, especially because we live in a world where you can find hundreds of thousands of articles and blogs and social posts about issues, and every single person is going to have differing opinions. And I want you to go to an expert that you trust, and you ask yourself, you say, hey, listen, is this person an expert in their field, recognized by other people? Do they hold the criteria, the degrees, the licenses that they need to be an expert in this field, right? And do I agree, well, we don't always agree with what they're saying, but do I agree with this person, right? In that, I feel like they're a good person. I don't feel like they have an agenda. I don't feel like they are trying to persuade me one way or the other, that they are just trying to share the facts. So forgive me, I said agree. And sometimes, I have experts tell me things that I'm like, whoa, I didn't believe that before, but okay, I got to think about that. But are they're trying to be as non-biased, as factual as possible. So ask your trusted source and be sure that you are getting your information from experts. And lastly, lay out all the facts. So how I do this as a teen and what I would suggest for you, literally, I take a piece of paper, and in my case, I'd write my boyfriend's name, right? And I would put pros and cons. Okay, I've shared this in so many videos. This little T-chart that I just drew for you, life-changing, okay? I do this for everything, okay? So you're like, hey, is Billy Bob, is this relationship, is it really a piece of junk, or does he really love me, And we write down pros. And what gets to be a pro? Pros are undeniable facts. He brought me flowers on Friday. He always texts me, and I like that, right? These are actual things that you like. I know you can write down things like, oh, he's really cute and stuff, but I specifically want you to just write down facts that you could argue in a court of law and say, he takes me on a weekly date on Friday. He texts me. And then on cons, you'd say, on Thursday, he made me cry because I saw him flirting with Sarah. I know for a fact that he is texting Sarah, Jane, and Camille, right? And you just write down facts, okay? And we're not trying to get emotional about them. We're purely going to write them down. And here's what's going to happen. For a healthy relationship, it's going to be, oh, this is not going to work. It's going to be pro. And let's be real. We're human beings. We have experiences, and relationships are 50-50, and we have a couple cons. And you can't see that at all. But I want your pros to fill the list. And your cons can just be one or two. And honestly, when you're dating, ladies, I believe in a 3 strikes he's out kind of method. And I think you'd be shocked how low my strikes are. If you're like, man, he doesn't text me as much as I want him to text me. I'm like, oh, strike 1. Do not put up with crap, because the guy that you marry is going to treat you the way that he treats you dating, but with less enthusiasm, okay? And I want you to marry Prince Charmings because they're out there. Side rant. But what you might notice with your relationship is that it's con, pro. Con, pro. And at that point is when you can say, you know what, brain? I think I've been focusing way too much on this and not on all this other information. And that's when you know that you've been negatively impacted by confirmation bias. Okay, I have ranted on and on about confirmation bias, but this is a life-changing concept that I hope you can grasp, and I hope that you can recognize throughout your life as we grow up and mature and say, oh my gosh, I think I had confirmation bias about that. I think that, I was just clinging to the one fact that I knew because I wanted to be right? Or because it felt good to be in love. And I wasn't looking at all the facts. So I hope this helps you out. This is a really big idea, concept, but it's something we see in our everyday lives all the time. So, babe, if you learned anything from this video, I hope it is that you can ask trusted sources and experts for advice on things and beliefs that you have. I also want you to know that when we discover or figure out or stumble upon the reality that our belief isn't true, it sucks. It hurts. It's a bruise to our self-esteem and to our ego, and that is okay. It is part of the process. So know that it's a little bit scary to say, man, I was wrong about this. Man, it's super scary to say, man, I wasted a lot of time believing, supporting, sticking up for this person, right? But that's okay. It's part of the learning process. So if you get to that part where it's a little sticky, do not worry, okay? Please like and subscribe. Leave me a comment if you've got questions about confirmation bias. And babe, as always, I am cheering you on, wishing you the best of luck. So I cannot wait to see you in my next video. Abbi J out.